And so right now we're in a time where I think America, the US, is not doing well, and Russia is doing well. One country is headed in the right direction, one country is becoming more spiritual, one country is not. I don't have time to wait for things to get better. I need to raise my children in a place that's going to be good for them. I was a single dad raising two kids, small business owner in Florida, and I fell in love with someone who's Russian. I wasn't like super excited about the direction of America. I wasn't running from it, but I knew there were problems. Hey, let's move and take a turn living in your country for a while. Had I known that things were going to get so crazy, I probably wouldn't have moved. Now I look at it as God was in control and he had me move just in time.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Joseph Stephen Rose, welcome to Meet the American Expats in Russia. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Eddie Gonzalez. Great as always. I've got my American smile on and I'm living in a beautiful city.
Wonderful. And just to remind our audience, where is that city?
Moscow, Russia. I moved here 8 days before the special military operation.
Oh my gosh, that sounds scary. Is Moscow a scary place?
I'm glad you asked that, Eddie. And the answer is watch my show.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Joseph, how does Joseph Stephen Rose go from Joe Rose, American, to Expat American in Russia? Tell us that story.
I was a single dad raising two kids, small business owner in Florida, and I fell in love with someone who's Russian. And I'm the man, so she came and lived with me. But after almost a decade, she was homesick. And I wasn't like super excited about the direction of America. I wasn't running from it, but I knew there were problems. And I had vacationed here so much that I knew that Moscow was a great place. Russia also seemed to be a great place. And so I was just like, well, hey, let's move and take a turn living in your country for a while. So that's how I ended up here. It was innocent and things were calmer at the time. Had I known that things were going to get so crazy, I probably wouldn't have moved because I just would have been scared. Now I look at it as God was in control and he had me move just in time because I'm so glad that I moved. And I feel like I'm in a better place here, safety wise, morally, everything. And, I wouldn't have come and I wouldn't have known about this wonderful life that I now have had things not happened on time the way they did. Yeah, well, my oldest child was already living here because he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do with his life. And we recommended, because my wife Sveta knew people in Russia, that he come here and he go to university for cheaper and, kind of become a man and live on his own. And so he was already doing that. So we already had a child over here. And our next set of kids, we call them our twins, because I have a child that's the same age as one of my wife's children. And they were both due to go to university at the same time. And then we had two little kids together, of one of which was going to be due to go start grade school, according to the Russian calendar, the same time the other kids were going to university. So it was perfect timing for us to make that move. We came about 6 months ahead of time, which ended up being 8 days before the SMO. What's your question again?
So what was their...
how did they feel? Okay. So they're all children except for me and my wife. So they don't have a say, Eddie. No.
Right.
The one child was already here. The other children, they were excited about it. I think it was a new adventure for them. The two little kids, they were very small, so we didn't talk to them about it. Sveta had a mother living in Moscow. She did not survive the medical event, the worldwide 2-year medical event. she was quite on in years. I think she had a full life, and she got to know all of our children, and was happy to see us and spend time with us before she passed.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. Now, that was such a very sad event all over the world. And not only that, it closed off travel and travel routes. And so it made it difficult for people to be with their loved ones, especially if they were in distant places.
Yeah.
Sometimes even in the same city, and you couldn't see your loved ones. Yeah, very, very sad time.
Yeah.
So now that you guys are here in Russia, and you said 8 days before the special military operation, which again changed the world's perception about Russia, or maybe amplified a certain perception about Russia. And how has that impacted you personally as an American, personally as a resident of Russia, and going forward as a expat American? How did all that evolve into that?
I mean, it's a tough situation to be in because, especially in the U.S., you're raised to, put your country first in many ways, So some people feel like I'm a traitor or I'm against my country. I can understand that opinion. I don't feel that way, because for me, I'm a Christian first, as I've said before on my show. And, I had to do what was best for my kids. And, countries, they rise, they fall. Sometimes they don't exist anymore, but sometimes they just have a bad 30 or 50 years and then they come back. I mean, Russia as the Soviet Union, they had a not great time at times. And now Russia seems to be on the rebound and doing quite well. Whereas in the 90s, they were doing terrible. And in the 80s, let's say, the U.S. was seemingly doing great. So, I guess countries take turns, being prosperous and then trying to sort it out and being sick. And so right now we're in a time where I think America, the U.S. is not doing well, and Russia is doing well. As far as one country is headed in the right direction, one country is becoming more spiritual, one country is not. And I think that, these things, they like I said, they take like 30 to 70 years to cycle. So, for me to say, well, I'm always going to be living in the U.S. and I'm forever a proud United States citizen. I don't have time to wait for things to get better. I need to raise my children in a place that's going to be good for them to be adult, productive, fruitful, hopefully Christians.
This is something that every father is going to want to do for his children. Do the best to protect them and to ensure a good future. So I don't think anybody would have a problem with that, but I'm sure some people do anyway.
Some people do. But let me know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments.
Yeah, but it was my choice, and I tell people that ask about moving, they each need to decide for themselves. And, if someone's undecided, I will sometimes say, well, if you have little kids you're trying to raise and you think this would be a good move for you, maybe you should make this move. If you do not have little kids you're trying to raise, maybe you should, try to help the U.S. do better. I'm not against the U.S. I feel bad for the U.S. I pray for the U.S. and its children especially, and I hope that the U.S. does well. I'm watching the election closely, and I would like to see things go well over there. It'll always be my homeland, and I'll always love, the idea of what it should be. It's kind of like this dream team of cultures from all around the world uniting and trying to be the best they can be. In the name of freedom, you could say, and I know that a lot of people are jaded about the U.S. now. I hope that I never am. I can love what it's supposed to be and hope that it does better, if that makes sense.
And as Americans,
and also, Eddie, about the elections, I mentioned it. I've noticed a lot in the comments, and I get on other social media platforms, there are people that are, for your size audience, they either hate both candidates or they love Trump and hate Harris, right? And that's what it seems to me. That seems to be the majority. For those that feel like they hate both candidates, I think that, many people, of course, are sincere, but I'm getting that so much now that I'm starting to think it must also be a bit of an op, you could say, to have people going out there spreading this message and convincing people that it's hopeless either way. And, if you do that enough and enough people don't vote, well, the DC is fine with that too, So, Trump may be crazy. He may be rude. He may be wrong. He may be a mistake. But for me, he's clearly going to be better than the other person, And I think that it's a mistake if people have been hammering into our heads that they're both just awful and there's nothing you can do about it. It's hopeless. And you're like, yeah, that's right. Just consider the fact that you might be being manipulated a bit.
How did Expat American morph into being after you arrived here in Russia?
Good question. So I came in February. I started the channel the last week of September. So when you post this, it will probably be the 2-year anniversary of my channel, which is going to be the night of my birthday party. I'll be 50. And so if people are watching this,
happy birthday.
They can know that I'm in a wedding style party at the moment and getting ready to relax because the party is probably almost over at the time you post this. But in Russia, apparently turning 50 is like a really big celebration. And it's like a wedding expense. It's like a big party. And my Russian wife has planned this whole thing. I hardly know about it. But I've caught a glimpse of some of what she's doing, and it's like a wedding, So it'd be really.
It's
cool.
A jubilee. I think they is how they term it here in Russia. Yes.
And hopefully you and I can share some stuff on our social media about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be on the lookout for that.
But again, I rambled about something that was interesting to me and forgot your question. What was your question?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So how did Expat American become a thing? So I came here in February. I started the channel at the end of September. So you see there's like half a year there where I didn't do it, even though the world was turning upside down. And so that half a year was really changing me and shaping me and molding me. And I went through like the 5 stages of grief. Like, what did I do? Did I make a mistake? Are my kids in danger? Oh my gosh, I'm considered behind enemy lines. The U.S. Embassy is telling me to leave. I just, I have friends in church here now, and even some of them are saying maybe I should leave. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to just leave all these people behind. I'm supposed to be a good Christian brother. As a Christian, you're supposed to help the world wherever. You don't just run away when there's a problem. And then sanctions are coming and all this stuff. And, I thought I was going to live a quiet life here. I mean, like I said, I just turned 50. So this was, only a couple of years ago. And then I started to feel guilty and bad, like I should do something. I could do something. Because as far as I'm aware, on this platform that we're posting this on, there was not a whole lot of, let's say, Anglo-Saxon English-speaking content coming out of Russia. There was some. There was one, I in my mind, big guy, Tim Kirby, but he had lost his English channels because of the sanctions. And then if you did a search 2 years ago, you'd find a few random stuff, like people, they would do like 1 video or 3 videos, and then that was about it. And, I remembered, just as a consumer, even before I even moved, that I would often watch like English speaking shows from other parts of the world, just because I thought it was really cool. And because my wife was Russian, I would look for that, and I couldn't really find it except from Tim Kirby. I'd find a lot in Western Europe, but not a lot in Russia. So I knew that there was a lane, there was space there for that. And then I knew that, because of the conflict, there would be, a consumer base for it, an appetite for it. People would want to know. And I was like, well, gosh, I could just go out on the street with my camera and say, I'm an American, and here I am, in the quote, bad guy place, as the West likes to think of it. And on top of that, the reason why it kind of bothered me is because I knew that I had been to film school at New York University. I had lived and worked in Hollywood, California for several years. So I am a movie guy. I have that background. I had done that work. I had that experience, and I stepped out of it to become a father. And I had been out of it for 20 years. And I had thought for 20 years, did I make a mistake? Did I abandon my career? Oh, well, I guess I wasted my time. I dreamed about something that was never going to happen for me. And so it was just nagging me. Joe, you were trained to do this. Joe, you could do this. You could make videos and they would be entertaining and people would watch them. Because that's the big trick. There's lots of people, everyone has a camera and everyone can make a video and everyone can put information in a video, but we're all getting bombarded with lots of choices. So if you cannot make the video exciting and interesting or funny, people just aren't going to watch. If people don't watch, then why did you even make the video? I mean, some people would say, oh, it's just for the art, and that's fine. I understand that. But for me, it was about trying to make a difference in the world. And, I was driven, for the life of my children, for my own guilty conscience of not doing the right thing, by the position I was in that I did not plan. I just thought I was going to come to another happy country and everything was going to be fine. And I am in a happy country, but everything's not fine. The world is in danger right now. And I felt like I've got to do something. But shortly after I started the channel and it started to grow, then I wanted to collaborate with as many people as I possibly can.
Today on Moscow Photographer, I am with Expat American.
What's up, guys?
And we are here at Patriot Park.
I don't care how big they are. I don't care how small they are. I just collaborated with a guy yesterday who's got like less than 1,000 subscribers. He's a fun guy because I did not start this to become a famous person. Now, of course, I have an ego and it's nice to be a little bit famous. Sure, it's fun, but that is not why I started it, So for some people that have a blog and a channel, they can be a little bit cutthroat and they can be a bit dangerous to be around because their goal is to be on top, to be number one. And I'm not saying I don't want to be successful, but my goal is not for me. I know this in my heart. My goal is to show the world Russia's normal in hopes that there will be peace. And so as many channels as I can help create as possible, the better for the world. And that is my goal. Whatever small part I had, I'm glad that I've had a part in letting the world know a little bit more about Russia and hopefully starting, 20 channels maybe that I've given a boost to, probably off the top of my head. Not because I'm fantastic, but it's just on my heart to do whatever I can. And one of the things I've been starting to say more recently, because I think the world is so much on the edge. I think the nuclear clock or whatever they call it is closest to midnight as it's ever been, meaning as close as we've ever been to potential world annihilation. If I can say, it's like, everyone you should all do whatever you can, no matter who you are, no matter how small you are. You should legally be as positive as you can to make a difference. And, maybe that's becoming a politician in your country and doing the right things. Maybe it's just starting a channel like you and I have done, or maybe it's just sharing posts and liking and commenting and sharing people's videos like this one.
Maybe I'm wrong, but perhaps what you're saying is by expressing our voice, expressing our opinion, expressing our outrage, or expressing our appreciation, or whatever it is that we feel as a human, this is our way of showing our voice and giving our voice either to support something or to be against something. But this is our sovereignty as humans on this earth that, as you say, is threatened at the moment.
Yes.
And so this is how we can all make a difference. In case you don't know, Joseph Stephen Rose is the reason the Moscow Photographer channel exists today, in large part. So let me take 2 minutes and I'll tell you the story. So I had started the Moscow Photographer channel back when I was in Texas before I moved to Russia one day before special military operation. My idea is I am a photographer, trained wedding and portrait photographer back in Texas for over 17 years. My idea was, once I moved here, was to work as a wedding and portrait photographer. And I wanted to use my YouTube channel to help bring awareness to me as a photographer. So that's where the name Moscow Photographer comes from. And one day, I'll never forget this. This is, I believe, October 2023. So you'd only had the channel maybe a year. And of course, I had seen your videos and I was following you on YouTube, following several other expats. That this expat community of YouTubers was starting to grow. And I was following you on Telegram. And I read a message one day, I believe it was on a Monday. I was sitting here drinking coffee, and this message comes across on Telegram. Who's in Moscow, who's free on Wednesday, and who can operate a camera? And I was like, I'm a photographer, I'm in Moscow, and I'm free on Wednesday. Me.
Nice.
So I sent Joseph a message, and he responded, and he said, hey, if you could help me out, meet me here on Wednesday. I need to film an episode. Make a long story short, I helped you film an episode. And in fact, I'll link that episode down below so you can see my camera work.
We're here in Tagoom Mall.
Yeah, behind the scenes with Joseph. So that was in October.
In the show, I say something Eddie off camera to you. At some point.
Ready, Eddie?
So that's the clue. He's not lying, guys. The evidence is there.
It's me. It's me. So fast forward maybe about a month or so. And of course, we had talked about it. I said, I do have a YouTube channel. I said, I just never really did anything with it. Not yet. And one day he approached me. He says, hey, would you like to be a vlogger? I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, let me mentor you. I'll help mentor you. Sure. So that started the first creation of 5 videos that I put on my channel. And then we did a collaboration early on, and this was at Victory Park. No.
Oh, yeah.
Not Victory. Yeah. Patriot Park.
Well, Patriot Park. Right.
Patriot Park. And we did a video where you captured NATO tanks, and I showcased Cathedral Christ the Resurrection at Victory Park.
Yeah, beautiful.
Patriot Park.
By the way. Yeah,
Victory Park, Patriot Park. I get them confused so much. But anyway.
Yeah, Victory is, I think Victory is inside Moscow and Patriot is much bigger outside.
Much bigger, and it's outside, right. So this video really helped put my face on YouTube and got me over 1,000 subscribers and got me really boosted. And then Joseph said, okay, the rest is up to you. Not really. But that was the start of Moscow Photographer. So you're looking at the person that I want to give my thanks and appreciation to. And I want to do it here publicly, Joseph, for helping me get a start on YouTube right here in Russia. So thank you so much.
Eddie, I appreciate it. It really moves my heart to hear that story. because sometimes you're running so fast, you don't realize what you've done. And a lot of times it's just making a person feel a certain way. And I appreciate you sharing that. So thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. And, I've met you. I've met Svietna. I've met I think I've met your entire family.
Probably.
I have not met your daughter.
No,
I've met all the boys. I've met all the boys.
Well,
So maybe it's your birthday party. We'll find
yeah.
out
Oh,
the
yeah.
entire
Yeah.
family.
You'll see her there for sure. You can put her on camera for something.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks, Joseph. You're giving me some great stuff, by the way. I love it. That's why I just love to let you talk, man.
It's cool because a lot of times, I don't know if the audience cares to know, the questions are given ahead of time to each other to have interesting answers. You go on different news shows and things like this. But Eddie and I have done so much together, and I've been interviewed enough times that I was like, I don't need questions. And there's something special that can happen when you don't have questions. And I know Tucker Carlson talks about this a lot when he gives speeches. He doesn't make notes. He doesn't plan anything. He's just completely off the top of his head, which I think is crazy. Because I'm usually planning my speeches and I know bullet points what I'm going to say. And when you do it like that, it does make you kind of nervous because you got to kind of hit it all. But if you plan nothing, it can be even more disastrous. So,
could be, or it could be hilarious too.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've done this enough that I felt like I know you well enough. I could go in blind without having the questions ahead of time. And the freedom in that is that you can really sometimes come up with some interesting things that you didn't plan to say a certain way. If that makes sense.
Right.
You talked about how you feel like I gave you some assistance in getting going, let's say, and it reminds me as far as someone who did something similar for me is when my channel was maybe a month old. I got reached out to by a group that you and I go to. And it was a smaller group at that time. It's a Telegram group, and they also meet 4 times a year. And it's for, foreigners who live in Moscow who are English speakers. And when I went there, I was invited by the person in charge who is like a news person in Moscow, you could say, and has a history with America. I'm not sure how much they want me to share. But anyway, they noticed my channel and they invited me. And so I went there with my wife, and we didn't know what it was. We're like, okay, sure, whatever. And at that point in time, I was trying to be very careful with the channel, not to be ever political and also not to be funny. I was trying to just deliver the news, which only got me so far. I couldn't take it after a while. I just, my personality started coming out and I wasn't so serious. And I can be very serious, but I'm also, I like to have a good time. So I learned, after about a month that I have to have a good personality on the channel. I have to just be myself. It's too hard to not be exactly who I am, because then you have to be this other character all the time. It's easier just to be yourself. That's an aside. But anyway, so we went to this meeting, and instead of being like a party where you're just kind of mingling and networking, there wasn't a whole lot of people, and it was like a boardroom, and they had like this big news camera there, and they just had us, take a seat, and we took a seat. But then it turned out it looked like we were on some panel, like in Congress or something like this, and they were asking kind of heavy political questions, and we're on camera. And I'm an American, and this is all, for me, this is all new. This has all started really quickly, and I'm not trying to be political. And I know that, the U.S. and Russia are not doing good right now. I mean, they're not doing good right now for sure. But back then, I mean, it's even worse now. But back then, it was obviously a thing because the SMO had been going on for a few months, and they actually put Russell Texas Bentley on the TV screen. So he wasn't physically there, but he was there on the screen talking to us, and he was his usual self. He was very passionate, and he was just going off, and it was scary. for me, because I didn't kind of really know yet all that was going on and how intense everything was. And it was overwhelming for me. And I was thinking, man, I hope I'm doing the right thing here. I hope I'm in the right place. I was like, well, I better say something, because, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, if the U.S. is going to lose or if Russia's going to lose or what. But but I'm now recorded being at this meeting, and I better state my opinion and make it clear so people don't just guess what I was doing here. And it's on the internet, it's on YouTube, and I'm kind of scared, and I'm open, and I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on here, and I just started this channel, and I don't want any problems, and I was like, that guy's scaring me, then this guy, like two people down from me, he raised his hand, and he just kind of like gave me advice on camera in front of everybody, and just kind of warned me that this is what it is now, and this is where we're at. And the impression I got is I need to just quietly disappear, or I need to go for it. And that guy was Stan Filinom. His English channel is At a Russian Opinion. His Russian channel is Filinom. Right? Filinom, yeah. And, shortly after, he and I did a collaboration, and, he's been my friend ever since. And his channel's way bigger than mine, and he's helpful to me. And, I take that example and try and do the same for others. But yeah, he and I have had a good time, and it's been a fun journey in that regard. So that's just another story of how someone did, for me, what you feel like I did for you.
There'll be links down below to Stan's channel, so look for those as well. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a very good segue into a question that I've been wanting to ask. And that is, you've said that you like to prepare for speeches. Mm-hmm. And you have spoken at, I don't know if you want to go into this, but I'll ask it anyway.
Okay. No, you can ask.
You have spoken at some government functions that have mm-hmm. been interested in the opinions of Americans. And so what are some of those, and how do you see that has helped relations, or maybe an understanding among Russians of Americans? What's your perception of all that?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's different ways that you can make a difference in this world, like I said earlier. And one of the ways is to get a job and make money, right? Another way that you and I have been learning is on this platform, you get subscribers and you get views. But that is not the only way. And being able to speak at government functions and meet with government officials that can, lobby things and change laws, this is a big deal. And it's another way you can make a difference, because sometimes you and I might be bummed, we don't have the subscriber count or the views that we want. But it's not all about that. There are lots of ways that you can make a difference. And I think it's very important, that Russia sees you and I and other people, and sees that Americans can be nice and normal and reasonable, and that we're not the bad guys either. There are bad actors, in DC, but Russians don't need to fear just the average American. In fact, they would probably have a lot in common with the average American. Giving speeches has always been hard for me my whole life, but not so much now. And I think the trick is now I'm talking about something that I feel like matters. And that's why I encourage people to do, if you have to speak, make sure you're talking about something that is important to you. And again, I'm reminded that my kids live on this planet, and, we could all face annihilation over the next 2 months or less, because the election is right around the corner. Now is the most dangerous time. Not so much before the election and not so much after, but it's now, when there's this struggle for power in the world empire, America, that something bad could happen. And we all have a part to play. For some of us, it might be huge, like if you're Trump, and for some of us, it might be small, if you're, a city worker just sweeping the street. But we all have a part to play. And, maybe you or I will do a video that will go viral, and the right congressman will see it in DC and he'll vote a certain way. I mean, that could absolutely happen, or maybe I'll give a speech and someone over here important is going to hear it because they were there, or their friend gave it to them, and they're like, wow, that matters. Let's make this change. And these little things all add up, for better or for worse, and could, stop terrible things from happening. Yeah, well, I mean, we are living through history right now. I mean, of course, we're always living through history, but there are times when it's more intense than others. And I remember being young in the 80s and kind of feeling like life is pretty cool and easygoing and everything's fine. And now you feel like, oh my gosh, is it the end of the world? And I'm grateful, though, to have this opportunity to be alive and to make a difference. And I think that we're in a situation right now, like for people like you and I, where the platform that we're on has the biggest reach in the world. There's nothing that even comes close. And at the same time, the platform is woke. It is not for, let's say, it's for DC, which I think is corrupt. It is for globalists. It is for New World Order. It is not for traditional family values and populism, and 50s style America and stuff like this. So you and I have to be really careful what we say on this platform, but also I do think that this is just part of the battle, and I'm really glad that for me it's an information battle, and not in the past. I mean, gosh, 100 years ago, we'd be out in the mud, trying to not get stabbed by a spear or something. You know what I mean? So we're in a fortunate position, and I think that it is revolutionary times, and hopefully that doesn't mean in a way that there's lots of loss of life. I don't mean it like that, and I hope it's not. It could be that, but I hope not. And I think that something's going to change. I mean, who knows? Maybe whether you like them or not, maybe the Trump administration is going to get in office. And, you already see Mark Zuckerberg saying positive things. Maybe these internet companies are going to change and not be woke. And maybe you and I and people like us are going to be able to have more freedom when that happens. Or maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe this platform is going to slowly degrade and fall apart, and we're going to get kicked off it, and we're going to be on something else in the future, like X or something like that. I think that with the internet, the genie's out of the bottle. The information eventually cannot be stopped. And we're just going through the growing pains of figuring out, where we're going to break free. Hopefully we survive to see it, So, and I don't
Absolutely.
say that lightly.
No, absolutely. I grew up as a teenager in the 80s. This is the height of the Cold War. And I remember that life was so good. And Russia, the USSR, our enemy during the Cold War, was so far and so distant from us that I felt insulated. And I never felt at that time, during the height of the Cold War, that our world could just disappear in a flash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now here I am in my late 50s, about to turn 60 years, living in Moscow. Who would have ever thought? Thank you so much. Who would have ever thought? And here we are now, closer than ever to having that outcome. I never would have thought of it. Never would have thought. Not in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would be my advice to an American. Someone who maybe has doubts about Russia, has maybe doubts about what they're being told and what they're being fed by mainstream media with regard to Russia, with regard to the world in general, is before you buy into it, before you just go lock, stock, and barrel into it, why not come visit firsthand?
Mm-hmm.
Come visit Russia. And that's my mantra, is come visit Russia. So before you have, you lock into this attitude, you lock into your beliefs, come spend 14 days, 3 weeks, a week, I would say at least 10 days. Visit Russia and find out for yourself. And that's all I'm going to say. I will never try to convince you otherwise, even though I can show you. Guys like Joseph Rose on his videos show you everyday life in Russia. I try to do the same thing. And I'm not trying to shove it down anybody's face. I'm not trying to say you're wrong and we're right, or we're wrong and you're right. I'm not trying to argue. I'm just inviting you to come visit Russia. And so that's my message. But what is Joseph's message?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think that people need to be aware that if they're thinking they want to move here and live here, you're still on planet Earth and you're still living with people and you're still going to have bad days and things still aren't going to go well. And sometimes you might have a hard time with government paperwork. In fact, I'm sure you will, because Russia is, they are sticklers about their paperwork. But yeah, I mean, if you have the time and the money, I think you should come here ideally for a month. Maybe you can't, maybe it's less than that, maybe it's more than that. And you should, travel around, like Moscow, St. Pete, some other cities, and, have a good time and see what it's like. And you're going to have some money to do this. Eddie can help you if you want. My wife can help you if you want. There's lots of services out there. So it is, because it's a lot, and it's a lot of work to come, and you're going to need help. And so I know you, Eddie, for example, I think you do help people, for a fee to come over and travel, right? And you have those links as well, I'm sure. And my wife does the same, and she'll also help people, immigrate. It's a way that both Eddie and our families can, have supplemental income, you could say, because the channel does not pay a lot. But yeah, I think that you're going to have some money. You're going to have some time to vacation, and you got to think about your career. What would you do? If you're an English speaker, you could be just an English tutor, and that pays well. If you are, let's say, new to adulthood, it might be a good time to take a trip and check it out and consider if you want to start your adulthood here before you really get going. If you have young kids and they're getting ready to go to grade school, like was my case, then again, it'd be a good thing to check out. But, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to cost money. It's going to take a lot of effort to move. You're going to have to eventually learn another language. And, you're completely starting over. So I think if it's a good fit for you, it's a good thing to do. If you feel like, your country is just completely gone morally and is not for traditional family values, and you feel like you've got to do this. But it would be something like that. If unfortunately, if it's something like in the case of some people, because we all know people that they're having a hard time, and their answer is to move or buy a car or do something else, or get another friend, or get divorced or marry someone new, or get a girlfriend. And they don't see it, but you can see that no matter what changes they make, the problem is them, and they need to fix themselves, And so, do some soul searching, make sure that you wouldn't be trying to come to Russia to escape yourself, because you will not escape yourself. It doesn't matter where you go, So, be sober about that. And give it a lot of prayer, and take a vacation and see what you think, is what I would say.
Absolutely. I say don't run away from something, run toward something. So there's a different energy in that.
Right.
So just think about that. It's kind of a big contrast, because when you finally do arrive here, especially in Moscow, you look around and you say, wow, looks like Dallas, it looks like Houston, or just some suburban city in America.
That's a good example,
it's just not much difference.
Yeah, because it's spread out. Yeah,
just
you have
spread out.
neighborhoods and you have buildings.
They've got freeways that have traffic jams.
Yeah.
There's, people wake up in the morning and they're upset and they're angry because it's not Friday and they've got to go to work. Kids got to go to school. I mean, it's exactly the same thing, but the language is different. The alphabet is completely different. And it feels like the most foreign country you could probably, as an American, I believe Russia is the most foreign country you could probably travel to, because it looks just like the US in many, many ways. It's very similar, but it's totally different. So,
it's probably the most foreign European country you could go to, right?
The most foreign European country. Well, yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's some places in Asia and Africa that might be much more extreme. But yeah, you're going to need some help.
I mean, I think that also, to be fair, as far as because I don't want to completely frighten people, as far as the positive things, I mean, it's a huge country and it's got everything the US has, and I mean everything. And if you don't believe me, I understand. You got to come see it. I mean, it's got cities like Moscow, like you said, that's something like Atlanta or Dallas. It's got St. Petersburg, which is like a big European city. There's not really anything to compare that to in America, except maybe if you smashed San Francisco and New Orleans together, something like that. They're very artistic, very beautiful. It is further up on the globe. It's colder on average, and there's more snow. But that hasn't bothered me yet. I like that. And maybe because I'm a big guy, I don't get chilled as badly as my wife. But I mean, I'm staring out at green trees right now, and it's almost October. And this is an unusually long summer this year.
It is.
But this is the first morning I woke up and it was chilly outside. And so now keep in mind, I'm not describing all of Russia, I'm describing Moscow. But it's like 5 months of snow, I think, in Moscow, to be fair. That sounds like a lot, but it's not like 10 months of snow. You know what I'm saying, guys? So just to give you an idea of what it is. And, like the US, that's a big country. You can see beautiful green mountains. You can see beautiful desert mountains. You can see waterfalls. There's all sorts of cities, all different types of states, and there's hot weather, there's cold weather.
Rivers, lakes, you name it.
Yeah, famous buildings, and sites. And Russia has all that too. And you're not really taught that in the West. In the West, it's like you're taught about red square with like a gray filter on it, and everything else is covered in snow and or poverty. And it's not like that. And it's amazing. Like, we've taken some nature trips on my channel, and it's beautiful to see. And it's like, I don't know if I'll ever go back to the US with the channel. I'm not sure if it would be smart for me to go back to the US because I'm giving a message that DC doesn't like, and I don't want them to try and do anything to me. I mean, my channel's small enough now, I don't think they would, but why take the chance when I'm now in a country that's so large? And maybe 25% of our videos are vacation videos. having a good time and exploring. And, you know, people are always like, oh, come back again. And I think, oh yeah, I should come back again. And I want to, but then I'm starting to think, well, you know, I mean, I'm 50 now. I don't know how long I'm going to be alive or how long I'm going to be physically active. This country is huge, you know, so I try and have the attitude when I go somewhere, I may never come back there again. There is so much to see. There's so many places to go to. And I know you've gone to some places on your channel as well, Eddie. But yeah, I mean, if a person has a career and is able to learn language pretty easily, I mean, it is like, it's like what the U.S. wants to be. Like if you were to, you know, make a virtual reality perfect world U.S., that's what it is in many ways. Now yeah, of course, technically, if you look at statistics, there can be some crime, but almost no street crime, almost no trash outside, almost no graffiti outside, almost no homeless people. It's so nice. And I think part of what it is the Soviet Union fell in the 90s. And so it was a terrible place to be. And then, you know, Russia became the Russian Federation. So governmentally, as far as I understand, it's only like a 30-year-old country. And they have worked so hard to try to be like the West and look up to the West. And they're inspired by Hollywood movies and stuff like that. And if I'm wrong and you're Russian and you're offended, I'm sorry, just ignore what I said. But I think they've worked so hard to be like the West that they are now better than the West. And I am not being hyperbolic. It is better than the West over here. Absolutely.
I often say that, and I don't say that to demean the West. I don't say that to try to convince people, but I do say that often. In fact, my first visit to Russia in 2018, when I went back to Texas and people asked me, well, what's it like there? And I said, well, it's just like here, just better. And they like, how? It's like, well, it's hard to really explain and articulate, but why don't you come and visit with me and then you'll be able to understand what I mean. You know, it's exactly almost like the US in many Western ways. You've got malls, you've got highways, you've got cars, you got people, you know, people work in the same type jobs and industries that we're accustomed to in the United States. It's not that foreign. Mm-hmm. But then you come here and just things work. Transportation works. Infrastructure works. Your telephone, you know, my cell phone bill is $7.50. I mean, it's just unreal. And it works. The buildings are extremely warm and comfortable in the winter. In the summer, you know, I've got air conditioning. I'm comfortable as well. There's nothing that I'm really missing out on.
You're probably more comfortable in the winter though, because
you're very comfortable.
Is really good. Yeah. The AC is not that good because it doesn't have to be, because you only need it for like 3 weeks.
Right. But the winters are very comfortable. Extremely comfortable. I don't care where you travel to, in Moscow for sure, and probably in most of Russia, because this country is cold, and they've learned how to adapt and live in the cold. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've told my friends this too. You know, when they ask me, like, "What's Russia like?" Well, it's just like here.
And you know what else I think of, Eddie, as far as like an example of how it's different. Here's just one example is that I've noticed. You tell me what you think. In Russia, like they're constantly, in Moscow at least, they're constantly like building and replacing things and changing, making the park brand new and changing out sidewalks and redoing roads and building new buildings. And as they do that, they don't block it off. People are walking through and going about their business. And it's up to you as a responsible adult to make sure you don't fall in a hole. And I found that odd when I first got here and noticed it. But I realized it's just not such a litigious society, and there's more responsibility put on the individual to watch out for themselves. Whereas in the U.S., if they were putting in a sprinkler system in front of, I don't know, a garden for a metropolitan building, I feel like they would have like semi-permanent walls up all around, and you'd have to like walk forever around the block to get to where you need to go, just because you might trip, over a copper pipe or something like that. And it's not like that here. So
I'd like to say that, the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't exist in Russia. Now, more modern buildings and newer buildings, of course, they're handicap accessible, things like this. But some of the older buildings just aren't. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they were digging up the sidewalk over the summer and they resurfaced them. And so they do this every summer. So they're always constantly improving quality of life. But during that 2-week or 3-week period when they're, digging up the sidewalks, I mean, you've got to walk on this path too, as they're working on it. And so you're going to have to kind of navigate your way around it. But I like how you put that, because it puts personal responsibility back on you, to watch yourself.
Yeah. And it feels like they replace all the sidewalks every year almost. It's ridiculous.
I think they do it every year. This is my second year here permanently. And it's like, I've seen it. But I think it's great. Just the other day, at every little apartment, little complex usually has a dedicated playground for the children. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're always well kept. There's either new equipment every year or every other year. There's the upkeep and the maintenance. I'm just really, really impressed by that. Just the other day, I saw them out there painting the public exercise and what do you call them?
Outdoor gyms, you mean?
Thank you so much. So just the other day, I see them out there painting the outdoor gyms, and they're all spruced up. They look brand new again. And they do this every year. And I think it's spectacular.
And outdoor gyms are everywhere, by the way, and they're free, and you'd be lucky to see one in the US. I'm not saying they don't have them, but they're rare. And if you do see them, usually it's something you'd pay for.
So Joseph, thank you so much for joining me on the Meet the American Expats in Russia, episode 3, I believe.
Eddie, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and it's been really nice to just be asked some random questions and just speak from my heart. And it's a nicer interview than what I normally give, because I feel like I know you so well. And I'm honored to be a part of this special series that you're doing. And, I think that if you don't know Eddie, guys, you're watching this video right now, make sure you're subscribed. If you think you're already subscribed, double check, because subscriptions have been mysteriously disappearing from these Anglo-Saxon channels in Russia. And, like this video and comment on it, please, let us know what you think. I will read every comment, as will Eddie, and we want your feedback. And, most importantly, share this video with your friends, and go to my channel and make sure you're subscribed to me as well. I will not bore you with my hopefully informational, exciting, and funny videos.
And with that, I'm going to say what Joseph just said. Okay? Do that. Do that now.
So what's the name of this channel, Eddie?
This is, what Moscow Photographer channel. And what is the name of your channel?
Expat American.
Expat American, yes. So if you don't know that channel, go to it right now, subscribe. And if you're new watching this for the very first time, subscribe to both of us. You get 2 for the price of 1. All right. Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I will say one more time, happy birthday.
I was just going to say, Eddie, happy 60th birthday. Although in Russia, you're not supposed to say it before the day. So I just offended some Russian viewers. Did you know that?
That's okay. But this is going to air on the 21st, and my birthday's on the 20th. So.
Aha. Okay. So I'm good.
Go ahead.
I'm good. So now you're 60. Happy birthday. And I'm 50. happy birthday to me. And I really appreciate you, Eddie, for sure. Thanks.
You got it. Thanks a lot, my friend. We'll talk to you later.